each one of you present. On behalf of the Department of Social Work, Madras Christian College, I welcome you all to this two-day national webinar on importance of rural community engagement program. This webinar is conducted by the Department of Social Work AIDIT and the SEVA Social Work Students Forum, Madras Christian College, Chennai, in collaboration with the Mahatma Gandhi National Council of Rural Education, Ministry of Human Resource Development, Government of India. Madras Christian College is a 183-year-old institution founded by Scottish missionaries in the year 1837. Academic excellence, spiritual vitality, and social relevance have remained the guiding principles of the institution down the decades. The Mahatma Gandhi National Council of Rural Education, MGNCRE, formerly National Council of Rural Institutes, NCRI, was established in 1995 as a registered autonomous society in Hyderabad with the objective of promoting rural higher education in a comprehensive manner by providing support to various rural institutes across the country. Mandated to align its policies, plans, and programs with across the country, Gandhian ideas, MGNCRE has come a long way over the years in meeting its core objectives. It has catalyzed change in many parts of the country by helping rural institutes, Gandhian organizations, NGOs, universities, and government agencies in various projects connected with the promotion of rural higher education. For this webinar, we are privileged to have speakers from different states and participants across India. I hope that this webinar will broaden your views on rural communities. We will now begin the inaugural function of this two-day national webinar on importance of rural community engagement program. The welcome address will be given by Dr. Miriam Sambil, head of the Department of Social Work at Madras Christian College. Dr. Miriam has been the head of the Social Work Department since 1993. She is an expert in the area of curriculum development of social work and has conducted various gender training programs, mental health programs for different groups. Ma'am has been teaching on topics related to mental health since year 1989. She has been a pillar of strength and encouragement to the department and the students since its inception. Ma'am, I request you to give the welcome address.
Thank you very much, Preeti, for that introduction and welcome to the gathering. On behalf of the Department of Social Work and the Madras Christian College, both the faculty and the students, I'm very, very happy to welcome all the participants to this national webinar on the importance of rural community engagement. I think this is a very, very important area in a country like India, where we're still very, very rural in nature. And we do know the importance of engaging the rural community for developmental purpose. This webinar that is being organized today and tomorrow from 3 to 5 p.m. is organized by the Department of Social Work, Madras Christian College, in collaboration with the Mahatma Gandhi National Council of Rural Engagement, Government of India. We're very, very happy to collaborate with them, and we do thank them for the platform that they've given us to collaborate with them. This afternoon, to inaugurate the webinar, we have with us Mr. Selvarajan, who will be giving the keynote address. Mr. Selvarajan, who is the Additional Director, Entrepreneurship Development and Innovation Institute, Government of Tamil Nadu, here is with us here. Sir, I very warmly welcome you on behalf of the department and the participants, and we really look forward to hearing from you. A webinar like this is not complete with number of resource persons. I do know in this pandemic situation, we've all got so used to virtual work, whether it is our own academic work or office related work or webinars, conferences, so many things are happening virtually. I think in a way we have connected much more through these virtual platforms because we're meeting with people who we would not have met otherwise. And therefore, this afternoon, as I welcome you all, I also welcome our speakers into our midst. I'm very, very happy, to see our speakers here. Dr. Vasanthi, I was speaking to her a little bit before we started, who's right from very close to us. And she said that she's also connected to Tambram and MCC in more than one ways. Dr. Vasanthi, thank you so much. You logged in so early. We're so glad that you're here, and I really look forward to hearing from you. Dr. Vasanthi is from the National Institute of Rural Development. We also have other speakers with us. Mrs. Sandhya, Mr. Naveen Kumar, and Ms. Regina. I'm sure they will also be joining us. I'm not sure whether they've joined. I'm not able to see the screen right now. But a very, very warm welcome on behalf of Madras Christian College to all of you here. To all the participants, I see on my screen there are more than 100 participants who've joined the webinar already. I think over the last few months, we've had a very, very good response to all our webinars. It has been very positive and people have been looking forward to our webinars. And I think even this webinar, we have about 124 participants already who are online listening to this webinar. And I'm sure all of you, dear friends, are really going to gain a lot of knowledge listening to these experts from the field. Most of the participants in the webinar are people from social work background or developmental backgrounds. And I'm sure for all of you, this webinar is going to be very useful. I know it is very, very different from seeing you all personally and speaking to you all personally. But nevertheless, I'm sure your heart and your soul is in this webinar, though I can't physically see you. And I really welcome all of you very warmly. And I do hope and look forward to very active participation from all of you in this webinar. As I said, this webinar is for 2 days, which means it continues even tomorrow. And we have another 4 speakers tomorrow, Mr. Kumar from the Rural Livelihood Mission, Dr. Satya Prabhu from Rural Development and Panchayat Raj, Dr. Rajalakshmi, who is from the Home Science Extension Program, Avinashalingam Institute, and Dr. Prince Solomon from the Department of Social Work at Madras Christian College. And so we really hope that all of you will stay on with us even tomorrow and participate actively in this. Why webinars such as this? I think in a pandemic situation like this, it is important that we keep ourselves active, we keep our cognitive development intact, and we really develop our knowledge and our skills so that when this pandemic lifts, we will be equipped to really work in the field. I think these last few months are a very, very strong preparation ground for all of us to go back into the field and work in the field once the pandemic is lifted. And I think this webinar on rural engagement will really give us an all-round exposure from people in the field who are involved in rural development to really give us insights into strategies, into programs, and into ways in which we as social workers can really engage with rural communities and get them to be engaged in the developmental process of the country. We are, of course, in the thresholds of development. We know the elections that are taking place in the US, and I'm sure all this is going to have a lot of implications for a country like India. And as social workers, I think we really need to be aware of these developmental changes that are taking place, policies and programs, and the global political agenda and its impact on all of us in more ways than one. And therefore, dear friends, with these words, I very warmly welcome you. I don't think I'll be speaking to you again, but I will be here online listening to all the speakers. But I wish you all the very best and pray for the safety and health of all those who are gathered here this afternoon. Thank you all very much, and God bless.
Thank you, ma'am. For the keynote address, we have with us Mr. P. Selvarajan, who is the Additional Director of Entrepreneurship Development and Innovation Institute, Department of MSME, Government of India. Sir has more than 20 years of experience in the promotion of farm and non-farm livelihoods. He has also had a great experience working with the other stakeholders like banks, NGOs, and other departments like agriculture, animal husbandry, horticulture, fisheries, forests, etc. He has conducted and chaired numerous bankers committee meetings to work for bank linkages and business finances. Mr. Selvarajan has prepared various guidebooks, awareness, and publicity materials in both English and local vernacular language in Tamil. We are happy to have you in our midst, sir. He will now give the address on importance of rural community engagement program. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the opportunity. In fact, it is a great day, and the topic rural community engagement is one of the very, very critical thing, I hope, for both community development as well as those who are into, like even in academic institutions, I find, for their own benefit as well. It has got a great implications, and I'm happy that NCC has taken up this subject through a webinar during this time, COVID time, and able to mobilize so much of participants. I find more than 120 participants are there. I hope it is going to be a 2-day event, and many speakers are going to dwell upon on many topics. I think this is at the initiative of Mahatma Gandhi National Council of Rural Education, Ministry of HRD is supporting that, these things. Department of Social Work, really, I also have a long association with them, and they are helping us in implementing one of the most significant program, that is rescued bonded laborer, rehabilitation of rescued bonded laborers, wherein we are working with 1,000 bonded laborers to promote them, and Madras Christian College has supported us, providing venue, providing resource support, and providing all kind of other support. In fact, they have been regularly taking various studies and conducting action-oriented researches and various other things. So when in fact, I thought today I may not be possible, and I told them, but finally I could. Really, I'm happy to join with you all to share some of my points. In fact, this community engagement, especially the rural people, is so critical. For instance, for poverty reduction program in the country, we are trying to do it through the community-driven development approach, involving the community. See, for instance, even in the recent times, you will find in every plans or programs or policies, you find there is an inclusive approach. Because often we missed out, while doing a bigger program, we often missed out the most vulnerable, poor, very poor, those kind of a category of people. Unless we take them on board and do our programs, we may not tend to achieve our objectives. That's how it gets significant from the government point of view. But even when I see, there is a program, incidentally, I attended a program where Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, wherein all the government institutions, these educational institutions are supposed to adopt some few villages and trying to, they also not have a good idea about how to engage the community. In fact, they look at as if they are going to. In fact, when we closely look at, for our own students' benefit, we need to have the engagement with the community in and around nearby neighborhood, so that our students also can get to know many things. Otherwise, there is no practical understanding or hands-on experience and validating all those concepts and theories we study in the educational environment. So in a way, this is a very, very crucial thing. Without engaging the community properly, probably we may not achieve anything. That's how, once we talked about decentralized governance and then participatory method of doing the things, and all these things is focusing on this, how to involve the community ultimately to deliver the program benefits to them, as well as enable them to participate, understand them better. Without understanding them, probably we may not provide solutions or whatever. That's what generally there is a saying that by implementing a development program to solve a particular issue, but in the process we create more and more problems without engaging the community properly in every stage. In fact, in planning, in implementation, and all those aspects, in monitoring, in evaluating, in every aspect, if we engage the community, I'm sure reasonable success could be accepted, anticipated, and we could achieve. Otherwise, things may not be possible to achieve that. So I think in that aspect, this is very, very critical. Especially now, I have been in rural development department for quite a long time. All the rural development program, we try to engage the community mainly through the Panchayat Raj institutions and CBOs, community-based organizations, and NGOs. Their support is very critical in reaching out to the community and taking them on board, working with them, and to deliver a project or the program benefits. These are some of the ways. for government comes up with a lot of programs to catering to different needs of the community. One side, we need to constantly engage them so that the community effectively participates and take the benefit. Otherwise, see, when I find even, see, this poverty reduction business, when we talk of poverty reduction business, we have been doing for quite a long number of years. But what is our achievement? Really, we have made a tremendous progress. But where we fail, unfortunately, if within the system, there are elites who always take the benefit of the program and comes up. And those who are not able to, due to various parameters, the vicious cycle of poverty, we find various parameters hinders them in taking part. So we need to redefine, revisit and refocus of our implementation, keeping in mind how the community is participating, who are all participating, is there anyone is excluded from the whole process. We find, see, for instance, the financial inclusion. Of course, government is taking a lot of efforts, bringing everyone on board, through Jan Dhan Yojana and all those things. Yeah, now everyone is having an account. But due to various things, if anyone is due to willful default or something happens due to various causes, if they are not able to repay for what they go out of the group, self-help group, and they go out of the banking system, ultimately they continue to be poor. Unless we take note of it, probably we may not be so efficient in addressing the poverty reduction. This is what happens in every sector. For instance, housing, sanitation, water supply. So many of the rural development programs, this is so significant. Engagement with the community, effective engagement. That's what even any communication, vernacular communication or various methods of our ICT and other methods of reaching them, and how effective we are in empowering the Panchayat Raj system, how effective in women empowerment programs, and all these things matters in engaging the community for effective delivery of those things. And of course, from the academic side also, in fact, more than like how we expect the community, for the same way, for the students to really understand all those concepts and all these things, I think they also have to given chance at the early stage to go with the community, understand them, and all validating their ideas, concepts, and everything with in the neighborhood is also so significant. If we could create such opportunity, I'm very sure, I think things can change tremendously, and our delivery could be improved drastically. For instance, in my tenure, present tenure, I am in a Entrepreneurship Development and Innovation Institute, and we are having incubators. We have supported directly, EDA has supported 10 incubators across the state, and we also try to coordinate various incubators in the state. Basically, the incubation thing, to be successful, we need to have this. I find this community engagement is very, very critical, so as to understand the problem and coming up with the solution in the form of many startup companies. Some of the startup, if you look at how effective in understanding the need of the community, the society at large, they are able to be very successful. Otherwise, many of the startups even fail due to improper understanding of the things and the disconnect between the community and these things. So in a way, I find this is a very great topic. It has to be dealt well, and everyone have to understand the significance of engaging the community in every aspect. A country like India, we need to do a lot in health sector, education sector, and every other sector. So to address it effectively, both for the community as well as for the service providers, providing organizations, need to have this concept clearly, so that we always do any program without excluding something and ensuring that those vulnerable, marginalized, and other poor segment always take part and taking it effectively. This is a very great movement. Like everyone have to be committed and understand the significance of it so that we can deliver better. I hope this webinar would go very well and it would sensitize many uh, students and different stakeholders across the board, and it can bring a change in this. I wish all success. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Before we move on to the session, I would like to give a few instructions to the participants. Please ensure that your audio and video is muted so that we don't have trouble with the bandwidth. For those on Zoom, please post your questions in the Q&A box and in YouTube, the chat box. It will be answered at the end of the session. An attendance link will be shared at the end of the sessions of each day in both Zoom and YouTube. Kindly fill them. The certificate will be provided only to the participants who attend all the sessions. We will now begin the webinar. The first speaker of the day is Mrs. Tuti Sandhya. Mrs. Tuti Sandhya is the Regional Coordinator, Unit Bharat Abhiyan, Telangana State. She is also an EC member of the Institute of Electronics and Telecommunications, IETE, Hyderabad. Ma'am holds BTech, MTech, and pursuing PhD from JNTU, Hyderabad. Ma'am has established the Center of Engineering Education Development. She has published and presented papers at World Engineering Education Forum. Ma'am has conducted workshops with the titles of Mentoring and Facilitation Skills for Institutional Social Responsibility, Experiential Learning, Community Engagement-Centric Student Teaching Learning Strategies, and many more. We are glad to have you with us today, ma'am. Ma'am will be giving us the introduction to Rural Community Engagement Program. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Preeti ji. Thank you so much for introducing me to all the participants, to all the respected faculty from the institution, and even from, I hope, according to my conversation with the student convener, we have participants across the country is what I heard. So we welcome you and make sure that you will have a happy learning for these 2 days. And as mentioned by Preeti ji, we are going to talk about rural community engagement introduction. So, as rightly mentioned by one of our chief guests, Dr. Selvarajan ji, whenever we are talking about community engagement is all about involving our involvement of community with whatever initiatives we take. And also other part, it is not only initiative taken, our effective involvement is needed. The effective involvement is the proper and right way we need to proceed with, right? Of course, we are doing many things, and all the institutions across the country and across the world are initiated many rural community activities. But still today, still at 20th century also, we're talking about community engagement, social issues, and need for social entrepreneurship, need for rural entrepreneurship. All these we are focusing on, because whatever we do, of course we are going with the 5G, or of course we are going with the 6G, maybe in a couple of years or couple of months, but still our country, India, is facing a basic problems, right? Of course, today we all are happy because we all together here, 150 members, are having in our hands the 4G communication. So with that, all of us connected, right? But still, if we go, the research says that we have a community related problems such as hunger, problems such as child labor, like many problems are there at the grassroots levels. And these are not only the problems of one Sandhya or one Preeti, one Miriam ji, or one Karthik, or one. No, it is not one person's or one village problem, but these are all the problems of our country. So how we can come out of all those problems, at least how we can give sort of solution to that, is to give the solutions to such problems, such grassroots problems. We from Ministry of Education, the Higher Education Department, has come up with some solutions. Okay, so among the solutions, the community engagement is one of the best solution which we have chosen. And again, in the community engagement, we wanted to involve, I repeat, we wanted to involve higher educational institutions across the country. Okay, why we wanted to connect the higher educational institutions for the community engagement, right? Why? Because we wanted to give whatever knowledge driven by the students and knowledge driven by the higher educational institution to contribute something back to the community or something back to the society, in other words. So keeping in that mind, the Ministry of Education, the Higher Education Department has come up with few initiatives of community engagement, and again we have a underlined rural community engagement. Okay, so we in short term we call it as a RCE. Okay, so rural community engagement. For making it sure, again Ministry of Education has come up with few initiative programs such as Unnat Bharat Abhiyan and Swachhata Action Plan. Already one of our inaugural guest has quoted about Swachhata Action Plan. Okay, so with these two initiative programs, and not only these two programs, even the Ministry of Education is coming up with many activities such as social entrepreneurship, rural entrepreneurship. So these are the few programs to quote. Okay, but the overall agenda of all these programs, whatever you consider, Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, or I have talked about Swachhata Action Plan and rural entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, whatever programs we consider, the main agenda is to involve all the higher educational institutions to be part of rural development. So how we can make it sure how the outcome will be achieved is through the involvement, as rightly mentioned and quoted by Dr. Selvarajan, that it is community engagement is not like to write in a books or to mention it and to complete one project, 1 week, 2 weeks project. No, it is completely the involvement. And we need to involve ourselves with physically and mentally. Like we cannot expect that being a professor or being a PG student in the university or in the college, we can guide them from our place. No, it will not happen. The involvement and the presence is very, very important. Okay, so for that involvement and presence, we will use few tools. I'm sure that all of you are social work department, so all of you know about the tools called PRA and PLA, right? Participatory rural appraiser and participatory learning action. Okay, I'll not talk in detail about all those tools, but just I'll present a short PPT about that, because Karthik, the student convener, has given me only 15 minutes of time. So I need to conclude it within 15 minutes, right, Karthik? Okay, so hope my screen is visible. Thank you, Miriam ji. As I mentioned, I don't know, just okay. So these are the few grassroots problems. So if you observe the slide number 1, we have the hunger as a problem, child labor is a problem, waste management, and the natural resources. You know, if you go in detail and practically, we are wasting our natural resources. That is the reason today we have many issues like air pollution and all. And dear participants, remember, this pollution or wastage is not only creating the sort of pollution, but also it is affecting our lifestyle. Not only our lifestyle, it is affecting our health also. Okay, here I will quote one example, a real case study, that because of this waste management, whatever the plastics we are using and whatever these natural resources we are spoiling, okay, because of that, we are facing health problems. The health problems are like the next generation are the newborn children. The newborn children, if you observe today in every hospital, even throughout the country, out of 100 children, almost at least 60% of the newly born children today are having one or the other problem. And if you go, the problems are not so simple, dear participants. The problems are such a way that a child, a girl or boy is burning with, like born with a hole in the heart, or their kidneys are not functioning, or there is like no some like problems are very critical problems. Of course, the parents will feel happy that okay, I have a boy or girl, baby who are born today morning 7:30 or 8:30, but within 4 to 5 hours of time, if you go in detail, 60% of the newly born child are having one or the other problems. This is the one case. And second case is, if you consider, because of this wastage and whatever the waste we are considering and whatever we are spoiling the natural resources, that is leading to the miscarriages is one problem. And another one, many of the newly married couples before 5 years or within the gap of 10 years, they are not able to produce their children. They have some problems, and all this waste and spoiling of natural resources are leading to those issues. Can you imagine the link between these two? Why my cousin sister, or why my friend, or why my neighbor, they're still, of course, they got married before 8 years or 9 years, but still today they don't have children. The reason behind all these is this plastic wastage and this natural resources spoiling. So these are all the grassroots problems, right? So for these grassroots problems, we from the higher educational institutions can initiate through Unnat Bharat Abhiyan and Swachhata Action Plan initiatives. And whenever we are initiating such things, our involvement, and our chief guest has focused on involvement, right? Our involvement can happen through all these tools, PRA tools. So I'm sure that all of your social work students and the faculty all know these tools, right? So I'll not go in detail about these tools, but only the thing I can tell you is, before entering into any village, please remove your all taglines that I am a student of social work department. I know everything about rural community. So remove all your tag. Let us consider maybe professor, associate professor, whomever it may be. You just remove your taglines and assume yourself that you belongs to that particular village. Wherever you go, whatever activity you initiate, it can be your slum areas nearby your institution, or any small community, even if you are considering also. Please keep in mind that remove all your taglines. Remove all your taglines. You are not belonging to social work department, or you are not a PG student, you are not assistant professor, you are not associate professor, nothing. Sandhya is going to to that village. She belongs to that village. That's all. There is no Ministry of Education. There is no higher educational department. There is no senior faculty, regional coordinator, nothing. Sandhya will go as a Sandhya. Similarly, one important thing we need to remember is, whenever you are visiting any village, remove all your taglines. Then only we can achieve all these tools, the transact work, historical, or whatever mappings we wanted to do, that we can do only when we eliminate or we remove our taglines. Because when we remove our taglines, then only we can interact with the people. Because if our mindset is like, hey, I know everything, then what I can learn from them? Nothing, right? So whenever we are visiting to the village, we need to keep in mind that we don't know anything. We are going to the village to learn something, right? Then only we can achieve. For always our chairman, Dr. W.G. Prasanna Kumar sir, will tell us that always keep in your mind that you need to imagine that you are in opposite place. Get into their world. Then only you can achieve something, whatever you're talking. Because rural community engagement is all about interactions and involvement and effective ways of implementing the action plans, right? So when we can effectively implement the action plans is when we can understand their needs, and when we can understand what exactly they want, then only we can do something, right? So if you understand their needs, then you can map their needs to the resources available in the village, right? So when we can map the needs to the resources available, then we can achieve whatever we are talking today, the rural community engagement, or whatever the outcome you want at that particular village, whatever the solution you wanted to give to that particular community, you will give for 100% sure. But the thing is, we need to understand the need of the community. So when we can understand the need of the community is when we'll get into their world. If we are able to get into their world, then your work is done. So whenever we are applying all these PRA tools or the PLA tools, dear participant, please remember that getting into the community world is very important, right? And the second one is understanding their needs. What is that exactly the village is in need? Whether they want the electricity has a problem, or whether they want water management has a problem, or whether they want the Swachhata initiatives in the village. What is that exactly they want? Whether they're suffering for this unemployment problem, right? What is the problems actually they are doing? So that problems or that needs we need to identify. And after that, we need to map the needs with the resources available. If you can map that resources and the needs, then our work is done. Right? So only the thing is we need to get into their world, and second one is need to identify their needs. Once you have identified the needs, your work is done, right? And these are of course the social map and resource map. So the resource map we need to identify. Just a second, give me a second. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. My laptop to get charged. Okay. So we need to identify the resources available. Again, the resources are natural resources. We need to identify what is available in the village and how we can utilize that resources to help them out for the fulfilling of their needs. That is what we need to focus with the help of this resource map, right? And another thing is, whenever we are visiting to the village, how many times you visit, that many village development plans you should have. That if you are going to the same village for 10 times, you need to come up with the 10 different action plans. One after the other, one after the other, one after the other, you need to implement it. So every time, whenever we are visiting to the villages or community, always keep in mind that we should come out with a village development plan. That is the outcome for our visit. That we need to keep in mind. Okay. So this village development plan, how we can focus. So first we need to go with apply all PRA tools, transact work, resource identification, everything is fine, right? Then finally we will come with the priority. So which problem we need to solve first. Okay. So once you have identified, for example, let us consider in a village, we have identified few problems, right? Let us consider 10 or 15 problems are identified, right? So by my experience, I came to know that the two problems need to be solved immediately. The first problem is establishment of a school, and second one is hospital construction. Okay. So again, I had a conversation with focused group people. Then they have voted for establishment of a school. Okay. I'm going with the establishment of a school. So for that, we need to go with some action plan. So how many months it takes, I'll show you this village development plan sheet. Okay. This is a village development plan sheet we have for one particular village. Okay. So here, if you observe, the drinking water problem is the first priority given by the villagers. Okay. So for this problem, we need to draw a village development plan. And in that village development plan, we need to consider who will help us and which government agency or which government schemes are there to get out of that problem, or we can help the villages. All this we need to map here in the village development plan. And also we need to mention the budget required, and we need to mention how many months or how many years your project is going to complete. Okay. So like that, we need to prioritize all the problems in the village and draw a village development plan with a proper budget and a proper timing scheduled or timing planned. So that once your drinking water problem is over, then you can go with the next problem. Next problem in that particular village is sanitation problem. So we can work on that. And for all this, we need effective involvement. Like as I mentioned, why I'm repeating this again and again and again and again is, whenever we are visiting to the community, whenever visiting to the villages, this is very much required. Because if I feel I am a professor or I am a senior faculty, I am a person from Ministry of Education, I cannot achieve anything from the villages. My outcome will be zero. I need to feel that I am a villager. Then only I can do all this, whatever I'm putting on a paper. So I need to be part of the village. Similarly, all the participants here, whenever you are visiting to the village, please keep in mind that that is your own village. That is your own village. Really, you wanted to do something back to that particular village. Okay. So for that, if you are thinking about the grants and funds and all, remember, dear friends, for each and every activity, there is a nominated fund is available. If you consider this sanitation problem, so for the sanitation problem, for each and every village, throughout the country. It is not a specific state. Throughout the country, rupees 4 lakhs to the rupees 25 lakhs are available for each village based on number of households in the village, right? So that with our involvement, we need to make sure that that will be utilized by each village, right? So how this will happen is our involvement with the district administration, because if you go in detail and do a little research every time whenever you are visiting to that particular village, do a little research what is happening, and how the political that structure is there, and what is the cultural structure of that particular village, and societal issues what are there, and literacy percentage of everything. You do a little research, then we can understand that particular village very well. And remember, again I'm just stressing upon, for each and every activity, if you wanted to go with water management system in the village, there is a dedicated fund is available at the district administration based on central and state schemes. But I'm 100% sure that the central schemes are available in each and every criteria for the upliftment of the villages. So uh, whenever you're initiating the work, you can keep in mind that all these schemes also helps us. And if your institution is part of Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, in that case, the Unnat Bharat Abhiyan will, sorry, will grant you some amount of funds. It is based on your research and your survey results and the proposal you submit to the Unnat Bharat Abhiyan for that particular village. Okay, so based on that, you will receive some grants and some funds for implementing that action plan. So only the thing is, our initiation is required for the rural community, the rural community engagement. So that engagement and involvement is very, very important. And always remember, effective involvement is needed. It is not that today we are going and doing some like nice village visit and coming out. No, it will not work out. The continuity should be there, and we need to seriously focus on that. What is that village is required? How we can contribute ourselves. And always remember, for the rural community engagement, the outcomes are impact of social activities. You will not get any money back to you, but you will have an impact. Society wise, the institution will have impact. So let us consider, if our hosting institution is going to any particular institutions, then they will have the impact that the Madras Christian University or Madras Christian College, oh, they have done this. And they are, we know them, we know all these madams and sirs and these students because they helped us a lot. So this impact is the outcome for all these social initiatives, for all these rural community engagement initiatives. So always remember, the outcome of RCE, the outcome of rural community engagement is the impact. What is that you're giving them? That impact will be there, the social impact, in other words. So always they will remember you for throughout their life. That okay, so whenever any student, it's not only your batch, your next batches, your juniors also going, they will remember, okay, oh, are you from Madras Christian College? Oh, I know, they helped us a lot. Like one of the student, like some names also they will mention, the Preeti or Kartik or Mariam Samuel ji, everyone has visited, and they are very good, and they helped us in this part, and they interacted with my children, they have empowered us, they motivated us. Like that, the social impact will be there. The outcome of all RCs, you will have a social impact as a gift back to you. So this we need to remember, and always please think with their mindset, and think like get into their world and understand their needs. So once you can understand the needs, then we can work out whatever we can do, and we can give them back something. Okay, so I hope my time limit is crossed. So that's all from my side as an introduction. Thank you so much, Preeti. And I would like to thank Karthik also, who connected with me and who called me many times. And of course for the approvals and for all this. So thank you, Karthik and Preeti and all, Mariam, Samuelji, and anyone, MCC, SW. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the
Thank you, ma'am.
informative presentation, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
I request the participants to post the questions in the Q&A box in Zoom and in the chat box in the YouTube. The questions will be answered at the end of the next session. The second speaker for the day is Mr. BSc Naveen Kumar. Mr. Naveen Kumar is the Chief Program Coordinator, Tamil Nadu State, MGNCRE. Mr. Naveen joined MGNCRE designated for Swachha Action Plan Project 2019 as a mentoring officer and the same for Swachha Action Plan Project and Jalakshakti Campus and GRAM 2020. He worked and developed bioinformatics tools for predicting colon cancer at Indian Institute of Chemical Technology. He has worked with Tech Mahindra Foundation for skill development for youths. Mr. Naveen Kumar worked for 12 years in community engagement through Vivekananda Rock Memorial and Vivekananda Kendra. He has conducted action research projects and guided interns on rural community engagement and content analysis of rural components in education. Sir will be focusing on the topic of role of MGNCRE in incorporating rural community engagement program. I request you to take over the session. Over to you, sir.
சகோதரிகள் மற்றும் சகோதரர்களுக்கு வணக்கம். It's a pleasant day and a pleasant afternoon that we are all here. I convey my best regards and my salutations to all the dignitaries present over here. And I congratulate this institution for taking up this lead in understanding rural engagement. Rural engagement as an introduction and the process and the tools involved were discussed by Srimati Tuti Sandhya ji. And now I would like to give some important things what are actually required for the students and faculty members as an extension to what Madam has given us just now. The PRA and PLA methods were shared by her, and I would like to very briefly give you some important points which will be noteworthy if you implement them. When we enter into the village after 2 or 3 visits, we understand that village is a habitat. It's an ecosystem. It's an ecosystem of human beings, plants, birds, animals, insects, and all biological life. And when we go into the deep contemplation on the existence of that village, we understand that the ancient villages existed more than 500 years or 1000 years. And the known history is also not written about them. But the people who are present as the householders of that village are the living chapters of that life of village. And chapter after chapter, we observe that there is a continuous sustainability. There is a continuous viability of the village. The village is coexisting with nature. And once we come into the dynamics of understanding the existence and sustainability of village, we also ensure in one important dimension of economics that life is connected to the rotation and circulation of money. Yes, and that is accepted because with biological ecosystem, economic circulation of money is also very important for the sustainability and viability of the village. So we, when have rural engagement continuously, then we understand the culture and civilization. Whatever we see among the people and term as culture is the conquering of human nature. Human beings have got positives and negatives with them. And when they overcome the negatives and promote the positives, that becomes culture. When human being conquers the obstacles created by the nature, that becomes a civilization. And at grassroots when we understand these things, we now go towards the learnings that we get from the village, as madam said. And having learnings from the village, what is the main learning that a student or a faculty member will have? In first few visits, all the odds, errors, and pitfalls present themselves to the observer's mind. And we understand after keenly observing these pitfalls and errors of the householders or the environmental conditions of the village that they are happening because of the already some proportion of errorness present in the way of thinking of human beings. And it is accepted, and we need to accept that everyone has got some lacking with thinking and thought process. And that is the reason why we always insist upon noble thoughts from all the directions. So, when we understand that there are errors and pitfalls in thought process, then what we identify? We identify few issues, and nowadays we use the word challenges. Because there is a difference between issue and a challenge. An issue can be an issue, but if it relates to our human promotion, then it is a challenge. Otherwise, issue can be left unattended also. So, the human challenges we identify. And after identifying the human challenges, the rural engagement will allow us to think of the possibilities. Think of the possible solutions. Think of the needful solutions. Naturally. But here is actually the main important significant thing which we need to understand. When we go for rural engagement, solutions come to our mind. Quite natural. But in the same way, solutions are already there with the householders of the village who have been living there. And now, what is the role of the higher education institution is not about the solutions for the challenges, but about possibilities of the already available solutions. And higher education institutions with the wisdom can really find out, identify, and indicate that so and so solution is a possible solution for so and so challenge. And the learnings shall now take the second phase, that is identify the possible solutions which are already existing in the village, which can be applied for the challenges and bring or clear the obstacles and promote the village development in terms of economy, in terms of culture and civilization. And then comes decision making. What can higher education institutions do when they couple their wisdom with the indigenous knowledge of the villages? That decision making will convert into resolutions. And when we arrive at resolutions, naturally we need to prepare an action plan for the village. And when we prepare action plan, we need to implement the action plan without any delay. And again, this implementation requires 5 important tools. Properly assessing the manpower, properly assessing the machine power, money power, properly thinking about the procedure of the activities for the implementing the action plan, the place and time bound strategy. When such things are there, like when we think of the resources, think of the time, think of the place, think of the process, then implementation can happen in a justified way. implementation of the action plan. So again, I will repeat, in this process of rural engagement, what are showcased at our mind are the odds, errors, and the pitfalls. So accepting these things, in order to transfer this thought process into noble thought process, we need to think of the challenges and the already available solutions with the village householders. And when we think of the solutions which are already available, we need to think and show which solutions are possible to be implemented. For that, we need to prepare action plan and go for implementation. And once we implement, what happens is the implementation demands a continuous process of follow-up. And when that is done, all the achievements, whatever are made in the rural practices, can be sustained. Now, I have given you something like a theory. Now let us go into some practical path for it. And that is, we need to work on the solid, liquid, and gases. That is, we require biogas, we require water, and we require total elimination of the fecal matter properly, logically. Solids means fecal matter, solid waste. Liquids means water, liquid waste. Gases means especially the biogas. When we bring solution for these things with the help of social entrepreneurship, then the village will naturally become a place, a habitat for everybody. When a village can be brought to a state where they can have biogas for every house, liquid and solid waste management for every house, then naturally that village can be promoted for rural tourism, and village as a whole will start earning money. When there is earning of money as a whole by the village, that is sustainability and viability. So this should be the main motto in our mind, because we need to always focus on the common problems of the village, not on the individual or family problems. The common problems are the Swachhata problems. Swachhata means not just only cleanliness and purity. Swachhata means at physical level, greenery, water, waste management, energy management, sanitation and hygiene. I repeat, greenery, water, waste management, energy management, sanitation and hygiene. These are the common things which make human life worst and also best. So we need to focus on this when we go for rural engagement. And that brings directly or indirectly glory and nourishment for the village. And that's how we can transform a village into earning village. And for this, we need to use, as Madam said, PRA and PLA techniques. So in short, I gave you in nutshell the main crux of rural engagement. And if these are noted, then not 2030 sustainable development goals. Within the next 5 years, we can transform our villages into rural tourism villages with good health and wealth. Thank you. Rumba Nandri.
Thank you for the informative session, sir. The floor is now open for questions. So the first question is to Mrs. Tuti Sandhya ma'am. Ma'am, do we have any relevant software to address the social work methods? Like, for example, if we take PRI tools, are there any relevant software, ma'am?
Mostly we will use the PLA methods. PLA method, by involvement only we can do the things, because when we are into village, then only we can understand what exactly is need. And other thing is to give them some solutions. We can incorporate our technologies. Like these days we are observing many sensor based applications or sensor based solutions the students are giving. So like that, the entrepreneurship students, the social work students can collaborate with the technology based students, and also together both of you can give the solutions. So such a way we can implement based on the problem identified in the village, we can implement the solutions also. But always involvement is the higher order for the RCE works.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. And the next question is to Mr. Naveen Kumar. Sir, how to bring sponsors which has no, sir, can I hear me? How to bring sponsors for the impact development which has no financial profit? Sir?
Okay, Preeti ji, can you repeat the question? Because Naveen ji is having 4 o'clock session at Sri Krishna Arts and Science Coimbatore, so he
Okay,
might
ma'am.
have left the
Yes,
session.
ma'am.
Can you
Yes,
please
ma'am.
repeat?
How to bring sponsors for the impact development in village which has no financial profit, ma'am?
No financial profit.
Yes, ma'am.
Mm. But basically, for the higher educational institutions, we can utilize this platform of Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, because through the Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, we are working for the Unnati of all the rural development initiatives. So, and always, as I mentioned, the outcome is impact only, the social impact. So again, remember, it is based on our involvement and how effectively we are, like, let them understand, and how effectively we are making sure that they will, uh, like they will have some positive benefits. That is what we are looking for.
Okay, ma'am. One final
And here I
question,
can
ma'am.
see one, two questions. Like one Arpan, some other has given. What are the most difficult challenges we have in
Yes,
rural
ma'am.
communication? Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Uh, yeah. So if it is coming for the communication, Arpan, it all depends on us, the like the students or the professors or the Ministry of Education department or whoever it may be. So how we are going to understand their problem is one, and another one is the basic challenges are, as I mentioned, of course we are going through 5G, 6G, whatever G, but still we have grassroots problems. And if you observe today, at maybe if you are from a village, you can today and for the next 3 to 4 days, you can do a little research on your own village. Then you will understand what are the grassroots and basic problems the villagers are suffering. Right. And once you understand those challenges, you will feel, oh my god, these are the very, very, very basic issues where my village is suffering for. That we will come like will come to the conclusion. So everyone in the group, or maybe YouTube, or maybe Zoom participants, for next 2 to 3 days, you can do a little research on your own village. No need to think about your institution or some villages adopted by the institution. You think about your own village and do little research. So what is that problem in my village? And what are the challenges the village is facing? And how can I help them, as being a social work student or being a PG or being a faculty or whatever? But how we can contribute something. It may not be always the contribution is in terms of money, but still how and what we can do for those basic challenges. And I'm sure 100% that if any one of you 135 or 150 members are here, if any one of you go in detail and do some little research, you will understand that the problems are very basic problems. It is not the problem for finding out 7G technology, or problem for finding out some IoT technologies, or problem for something like these days, if you might have heard AI. All these are not the problems at our grassroots levels. We have very, very, very small problems, and what we can do for that problem, I request all of you think about that. Being a social work students and the faculty, all of you focus on that, and no need to go out of your own village. I hope during this pandemic time, everyone are sitting at your own places. Just think about your village, what we can do, and what are the problems my villagers are facing. Then you will get all the answers for all the questions given. Right?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Due to time constraints, we'll move on to the next session. Thank you for.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Preeti.
Yes, ma'am. The next speaker for the day is Dr. Vasanthi Rajendran. Dr. Vasanthi Rajendran currently heads the Center of Training, Orientation and Capacity Building at Rajiv Gandhi National Institute of Youth Development. She has contributed to strengthening youth and rural development training and documentation in India. Her areas of interest are youth development, rural wage employment, development communication, and women in governance. Dr. Vasanthi has edited over 300 books on rural and youth development and published several articles in reputed journals. She has conducted over 200 training programs for national and international participants on various topics of rural communication and youth development. She has designed several capacity building modules for youth on right to information, environment, poverty alleviation, career counseling, etc., and has conducted several research studies on youth issues besides compiling a statistical profile of youth in India. Ma'am will be focusing on role of youth in rural community engagement. I now request you to take on the session now. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Preeti. And let me at the outset thank the organizers, um, the Madras Christian College and MG, NCRH, MCRE, for giving me an opportunity to make a presentation in this very important webinar on rural communication, rural engagement, rural community engagement, and giving me this topic of, what is the role of youth in this rural community engagement. Yeah, already my presentation is there. I'll be looking at the concept. Who is managing the presentation can move on to the next slide. Yes. What I'll be covering in my presentation is I'll look at the concept of what is the role, youth in rural community engagement, looking at the benefits to the youth, the approaches, what are the approaches for youth for this, youth engagement, and looking at what are the guiding principles, the aspects that need to be focused on by the youth, and giving suggestions how we can encourage youth engagement in this rural community, in their rural communities. And also giving some examples of best practices, how, involving the youth in the community has worked wonders. Next. So coming first to the next slide, please. Looking at rural youth engagement, what does exactly it means? What is rural engagement? It is meaningful participation and sustained involvement of a young person in an activity with focus outside himself or herself. And when we talk about community here, it refers to a geographical boundary, of course, and a municipality or a panchayat. And there are a lot of definitions of rural areas, but we look at what the NS is and the Planning Commission says. Planning Commission says is a town with a maximum population of 15,000, whereas the NSS says it's an area where the population density, it will not go up above 400 per square kilometers. So, and there's also the other definition which says all areas other than urban are rural. So, in this context of rural engagement and the definition of rural community, let's look at what is the role of youth in rural community engagement. Next slide, please. Next slide. You'll have to go quickly because I just have very less time. I think you'll have to go to the previous slide. Somebody who is managing, yeah. So historically, we can see that the youth input in decision making, problem solving, local action, evaluation of rural community just received very limited attention. But of late, this is being given a lot of importance, and there is a need for program and policy planners to better understand what could be the role. People, when my previous speakers, my previous panelists were referring to the community participation, everybody in the community participating. But when we look at youth participation, which is very important, in our country, India, we have this demographic dividend where we have about 30% of the population are youth, and they are the most productive, section of any, population, whether it is in the urban area or whether it's in the rural areas. It's they who contribute, and that's why their role. So here we are talking of students, we are talking of PG students, UG students, the school students who are. But looking at the youth as such in the community, they have a very important role. And Ms. Sandhya was mentioning about how each one of you, there are about 100 participants here in this webinar. Each one of you think about your village. What are the problems in your village? I think most of you, the participants would be the students in the age group of maybe 15 to 29, the youth group, youth age, definition of youth as per the National Youth Policy. So, you have to think the youth have an important role, and you have to start thinking, how we can involve this youth in the rural, communities or rural development process. Next. So, and if you see, it's the community is the first entity that all of us encounter. Beyond a family, it's the community. So it's very important for youth to have their role, clearly defined roles and opportunities which allow them actually to participate in their rural communities rather than having a passive role. Now, if you go to the villages, we look at the youth there, you'll find them idling around, sitting around, talking. There are a lot of youth-based organizations with the Government of India. Through Government of India programs, we have the Nehru Yuva Kendra Sangathan, which is actually the they form a lot of youth clubs where the youth are made to participate in the community activities. But you will see most of the clubs are not active; they just remain passive there, talking, idling, leading, talking, indulging in, and even in antisocial activities. So how do we bring them and make them an active, citizens or active, part of the community to which they belong? And this Cynthia was saying, the way she said that, let each youth think of it, how they can contribute to their village or to their community. Next. Next, please. So if you see, it's not, so we say, yes, youth should participate in the community. You should think about the community, how they can participate, how they can contribute to their rural community development. But what are the conditions that actually can bring them in? How can the youth be brought into, and, start thinking about their communities and how they can start, contributing to the community. There is also the need to facilitate them. And how do we facilitate them? By providing opportunities for leadership and preparing them to contribute along with others in their communities. But this is not happening. If you see, any decision in a panchayat, usually panchayats, this is another area where, Rajiv Gandhi National Institute of Youth Development is working on, is trying to ensure that youth are part of the local governance system, the panchayat. There should be youth there. But if you see, majority of the, the panchayat leaders and the panchayat members are adults, beyond, not youth, not very old. So when they take decisions for the community, they do not think of the youth. They do not think of involving the youth because they think they are capable of making the decisions. They don't at all think. So there is a need actually for the adults to think and to think of including, how they can include, and they should be able to accept that they will be able to, the youth will be able to contribute. It's not having that pre-existing notions or assumptions or the stereotypes about the youth. They should change their mind. I think that is one condition that is necessary. And of course, now schools, colleges, and other social institutions are considering how to integrate youth into the process of community development. You can see how MGNCR is also by organizing this kind of seminars and having this kind of topic and how to engage the youth. We are starting to think about it. So next, so we also need mechanisms of how we can advance youth into responsible roles. It is very important that we can't just ask them to jump into the, she was talking about PRA and PLA and all these techniques. They should be also oriented on it. So the youth need to be oriented on the techniques of PRA, PLA, maybe other kind of trainings, developing skill, like how to prepare a budget and how to work with committees. And it's all these things are necessary. These are the conditions that is necessary in order to prepare the youth to get into and to engage themselves in their communities. Next, please. So while while they are getting, while drawing or bringing them into their into the community development, rural community development process, they can also play the other important role, which is very, very important. As I said, because youth are now constituting a very important or significant section of the population, they can start identifying their own issues. What are their own issues? Like employment, is it education, is it health issue, or is it sanitation? What are their specific issues? Then they're developing their program for themselves and how they can deliver these programs. And they also can, there are, the entire youth population in a village will not be, uh, will come forth as leaders, but they will be, when they start involving in their community development, there will be some leaders who will emerge, who will represent the youth in that community. So youth, other school organizations, all these communities actually can benefit by involvement of the youth when they engage in their own communities. Thanks. Next, please. So let us look at, it's actually, if you see this role of youth in rural community engagement, it has got, it's like, hitting a man with two, it has twin benefits, two benefits. It's not only the community which will benefit by their by their involvement, but the youth themselves also have a lot, gain or the benefit a lot if they start, engaging in their rural communities. They let's look at what are the benefits. So they develop the skill needed to be an effective leader. So once they start participating, they start trying to lead the development in their community. They get, or they develop the skills which are needed to be an effective leader. And the other skills that they gain as a part, when they start involving in their communities is the skills needed actually to represent a subsection of the community. That is what I was speaking the previous slide. Leading or representing their own peer group, that is the youth, in the larger community context. So this is another benefit for the youth. And they also, because by engaging in community rural, their communities development, they gain, the thing to solve the skill to solve problems, and also decision making skills. So decision making skills, problem solving skills, all these kinds of skills are also actually what the youth get benefits by, starting to contribute to his or her community. Next, please. Next, please. Yeah. So they, as I said, they in the process, they also, can become future leaders. Maybe their own, representing their own panchayat, their village, or even at higher level at the district and even at the state level. So these are, there are so many leaders who have emerged there, who have actually started by working in their communities. Many of the political leaders at, the district level or state level or national level have been people who have worked with their own communities. So this process of involving the youth in their own community can actually, create future leaders at different levels. And if you see they can also, the development of such skills also at this age serve the youth well in a variety of life endeavors. So whenever they want to take up any other endeavor, the skills that they gain by contributing to their community, it helps them a lot. Next, please. Then by involving in the rural community, they also, it creates a sense of belonging to them, and a purpose for the youth. So otherwise, as I said, they will be just idling around and wasting their time, sometimes indulging in certain activities which are not are good either for them or for the community. So that once they start contributing to the communities, they have that sense of belonging, and they feel they are a true part of the community. These are all the benefits, and they begin to realize look at themselves as vital members of the community. Otherwise, they will say, "Who's that fellow?" And the way they talk, the others, the older generation in the community, talk about the youth. They are these people are wasting their time. But once they start contributing to the community, to their community in terms of getting themselves engaged in all the activities, or development activities, definitely they'll start getting the recognition. So next slide, please. I think we'll have to go a little faster because I have limited time. Yeah. So it also, their engagement in the community, activities of community development, it decreases the traditional problem behavior. So actually, the youth, they don't feel disengaged and undervalued in the community, and it also reduces the use of drugs and alcohol. So as I was saying, otherwise they will be tempted to be drawn towards, if they're idle, they're not bothered about their communities, they're not bothered about their family, they're not bothered about the education. All this will lead to starting to leading to certain habits like the drug and taking to drugs and alcohol, these, and then dropouts. There are a lot of dropouts in schools, and they indulge in crimes. So all this would be reduced if they start, they're really engaged in their. This is another major benefit, especially in the remote areas, the villages. If they start contributing, looking at what are the problems of their villages, and and working towards that, how to resolve it. As one of our speakers said, the solutions are there in the village itself. Their village wisdom itself is there, but how then those solutions, how to implement them, taking looking into all the steps that were given by Mr. Naveen. Then all these things will actually lead them to, think less of and indulge less in, not indulge in, all these, substance abuses and criminal activities. Next, please. Next, please. Yeah. So there are a lot of, and besides that, there are a lot of other positive outcomes, like, sometimes it also leads to higher academic performance actually, and lower rates of pregnancy among women, because they are all engaged in this kind of, contributing to their community, and it leads to these kind of deviant behavior, having early marriage, early, pregnancy, and all those things will be, those things also will reduce. So the lower rate of use of drugs also. So these are things, these are a lot of benefits actually. And the other benefit is, yeah, as I said, because the youth have started, if they get involved in their community activities, there can be also interventions and prevention efforts actually taken to ensure that the youth actually, are not indulging in, things which actually lead to their, antisocial activities. So they will shy away actually. These interventions actually, will make them, not to indulge. Once they start getting recognition in the community, they will definitely shy away from the antisocial activities, ensure that they are, always, looked up upon by the community. So these are benefits actually of by engaging the youth in their community development. So they will, and the other aspect is they will internalize their responsibility for the action, and will also be, and accountable to their family and to the community. So in this way, a responsible behavior is also an outcome of if the youth are actually engaged in their community development. Next, please. So therefore, so these are so many benefits. So you have seen the benefits of, engaging the youth in the community development. So rural communities, what they should do is look at how meaningfully we can actually include the youth in the programs and activities of the community. And this should be done by incorporating actually the schools, colleges, or university within, maybe if it forms a part of the environment. And by involving the youth, actually, the communities, not only the communities benefit, but they also in the process are creating future leaders. Next, please. Next, please. So let us look at, now, so it is very, very advantageous, not only to the youth, but also to the, to the community by engaging the youth in the community development activities. So let us look at what are the different, successful, youth engagement approaches. There are so many ways you can engage them. You can make them part of the youth. You can have the youth councils. You can have the youth, involve them in the, in the governance itself, as I said, in the part of the panchayat. If, when youth are part of they are become part of the, the panchayat, made a panchayat member, or, they can serve on boards, or they can have, what is important is giving them an opportunity to express themselves. So that's what we mean by youth voice. So youth councils, youth governance, youth serving on boards, youth voice, these are, and there are other more, these are, successful ways to actually how we can engage the youth in the community development. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, and you also have these youth leadership programs, which even the Rajiv Gandhi National Institute of Youth Development is conducting all over the country. It's a way of promoting leadership among them, and motivating them to, to contribute to the development of the communities. Then the other approach is you can actually promote youth advocacy when they take up issues that affect themselves and advocate for it. So encouraging them to advocate issues that affect them. And then you have youth service and youth organizing. These are different approaches through which you can actually engage the youth, in community development. So these have been some successful approaches which have been used by several countries, but we have not started using all these things in a proper manner. And if you see youth in governance, it's very minimal. I mean, there is no data actually to find. Of course, at the youth in governance at the state level, at the the central level, we have some data about how many are youth in youth members or representatives in our state legislative assembly or in the parliament. But what about at the local governance level, where it actually matters? Because development, is fun to use this cliche that India lives in villages, and so development should start in the villages. And so if development has to start in the villages and youth have to play a role, they have to be part of the governance system at the local level. So that is also not happening to the extent or the desired extent, that is actually required for the development to take place at the grassroots level and then go up to the at the national level. Next, please. Next, please. Yeah. So while engaging the youth in the social, in the rural communities, we have to keep certain guiding principles in our mind, and that is the primary one is the value of youth as community assets. They are very valuable assets of the community, and they should not be looked down upon, or the way it is. We have to agree that is a general practice. If you see adults in the villages, they do not value their youth. They criticize them. They have a stereotype opinion about the youth, saying that they are useless, they will not participate, they will not study, they will not work, they are lazy fellows, they will not contribute anything to community. So that should not be the attitude. The attitude should be that we should value our youth as community assets, because they are the most productive, and if you make them part of the development process, you will understand in the way they will come out with such good ideas, which is actually which would be more relevant in the present, because we are the adults are stuck to their old ideas, the traditional ideas, which may not work in the present situation. But if you value the youth and allow them to participate in the development process, you will understand that they are very valuable community assets, and they actually, you must commit to participatory leadership. That is, you must give them scope to lead also. If they are able leaders, you must commit to participatory leadership and build authentic relationships. So it's not just that, it's a surface level, let the youth participate, let them come and participate, and just listen to them, and then don't take into cognizance their ideas, their suggestions and their input. So that kind of thing will not work. So you have to build something authentic. You have to believe in your youth that they will be able. Whatever they are suggesting is something is worthwhile considering. So building authentic relationships are very important, and must strive for healthy equity. Yes, definitely, and also meet the youth where they are. It's not that you sit in your in your panchayatri or your local gram, the panchayat office, and expect the youth to come. No, their youth are there. Where are the youth in your community, in your village? Where are they generally found? Is it in the youth clubs, or is it near the the tea shop, or is it near the wherever they are? So is it near the playground? Where are they? So you have to ensure you try to meet them there. You want to engage them. So you have to meet them there where they are, and motivate them to actually be a part of the community development process. And you use the whole community approach. That is, all of us will work together. It's not that only the youth will be given the responsibility and the rest will, just enjoy the benefits of the youth working. It's not like that. It should be a whole community approach. And also you have to take into consideration the safety aspect. Any activity that is being undertaken, the safety aspect also has to be taken into consideration. Not just leave it to them. because the youngsters, you have to also guide them and also ensure that the safety aspects of any proposal for development is also taken into consideration, so that it does not lead to hazards and accidents or problems later, and then withdrawal by the youth, that no, this is not we cannot contribute, we should be that it should not lead to that. So these are the guiding principles to ensure that the youth are a part of the community development process. Next, please. So there's so many aspects. I don't want to. I quickly go into this because my earlier panelists, they have already mentioned the areas where they can participate. But just a quick look, that they can focus as a part of their community engagement is generation of jobs. Employment is very important. Villages, so much of unemployment is there. The villages themselves have to think how they can actually contribute. How they can resolve the problem of unemployment in their village. There's so many ways. The only thing is they have to put their heads together, and as somebody said, there is a solution. They have to put together and see how that solution can be implemented. The construction of rural houses, schools, education institutions, focusing on skill development, so many areas, healthcare facilities, sanitation, agriculture, industries, so many water, gas, cooking equipment. Next, please. Agriculture is a main area where they can can really participate, because agriculture is the mainstay of any rural community engagement. So in rural areas, agriculture is the mainstay. So we have seen youth associations which have got involved in a number of activities like planting of crops, community farming, construction farm, village squares, contribution to scientific methods of cultivation, organic cultivation, so many things in which they can actually get engaged in. Next, please. In social and economic development also, there are so many ways they can actually contribute to the social and economic development of the community. There's so many problems already mentioned by the previous panelists. I will not go into it because I think I'm crossing my time limit. Next, please. Next, please. Yeah. So the steps actually suggested to increase their participation. Next, please. Next slide. I'll quickly go through the steps that can be made that can be taken to enhance the youth participation in community development. You must give the youth opportunity to contribute and offer their input. Give them the opportunity. Allow active collaboration between adults and youth. Form relationships with teachers who engage youth in community concerns to increase youth development. Connect youth to youth policy efforts. Encourage youth to identify their own interests and activities, allow youth to confront serious social problems and become active community citizens, evaluate youth involvement efforts on a regular basis to identify and capitalize on their strengths, identify and address weaknesses, and help to gain more meaningful youth participation. Next, please. Next slide. I think I will skip all these things because these are explanations for them since I am running out of time. Next, we come to the best practices. Next. I just like to share some of the best practices where youth have been involved in the community development, rural community development, and which has proved to be a great success. Next, until you come to the best practices, please keep moving. Yeah. Next, one best practice is just in our neighborhood here in Chennai. I don't know how many of you have heard about this Kuthambakam actually. That village community was a village which was drought hit, village where all the people were taking to this liquor, when they used to have so much of liquor, their liquor addiction was there. But this person, the Mr. Elango, I think, who got the Ashoka Award, when he became the panchayat leader of this village, he involved the youth there and ensured that the village became one of the best model villages in the country. And today, people from not only from the country, but all over the world visit this village to see what kind of changes have been brought and how actually a village community or a rural community can develop by the active involvement of the community, specifically the youth in that community. So this is the one best practice that I thought I should share with you. The other one, next please. is the Havre Bazaar. I think this also you would have heard of. This is also a drought-hit village actually, and the panchayat leader there, the Popat Rao Bhagupati Pawar, actually is a postgraduate. And when he realized that his village is, the main problem is water, the way he involved the community, the youth in that community actually, and for water conservation, I think that he focused on water conservation, which ensured that the village, which had actually so many people below the poverty line, has today about 60 families who are actually millionaires. It's one of the richest village in the country. So it's all happened because of the active participation of the community, specifically the youth. And that is what I thought is, to give this example of how youth participation in community development can actually bring about, such wonderful results or impact. Next. Next, please.
I think we are running out of time, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm just finishing. Next, please. Next. I'll conclude. I would like to conclude. Next slide, please. Yeah, this next slide. This is another example where the community radio has been used by the youth actually to bring about changes in their community. Next slide, please. I'd like to conclude now with this. That is, that it is, we can bring about a lot of impact on the community, rural communities, by actually involving the youth. It is important to involve them in their own, in the development of their own communities. Next slide, please. Yeah. So with this, I would like to end with a quote from Swami Vivekananda. He said, and it holds true very much today, "Give me 100 energetic young men and I shall transform India. My faith is in younger generation, modern generation. Out of them will come my workers. They will work out the whole problems like lions." That's what Swami Vivekananda said. And what Kofi Annan, former UN, said is, young people should be at the forefront of global change. And let us assume that young people have the opportunity to participate fully in the lives of their societies. So with this quote, I would like to end my presentation, again emphasizing the importance of actually the youth participation in their, in their community development. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for an informative session on youth engagement in the community, ma'am. I request the participants to post their questions in the Q&A box in Zoom and in the chat box in YouTube. The questions will be answered at the end of the next session. The final speaker for the day is Mrs. Regina Ernest. Mrs. Regina Ernest is a technical specialist, water sanitation and hygiene, World Vision India. Ma'am is a water sanitation and hygiene specialist with expertise in WASH, humanitarian professional for both emergency and development projects, with more than 5 years of experience. Ma'am has a passion to changing and practical needs of water resource management and sanitation in global market. She is responsible for development and implementation of a strategically well-focused, convergent WASH program in the state, leading to improved water and sanitation and hygiene education program. She actively participates in drafting water sanitation and hygiene strategies and operational plan for water sanitation and hygiene programs in the projects World Vision India. Ma'am is also specialized in conducting training programs on the topic capacity building on WASH by Water Sanitation and Hygiene Institute, training for WASH technical staff of World Vision India, training program on implementing and operationalization fecal sludge management, training on solid liquid and waste management, and training on social behavior and many more. Ma'am will be focusing on rural community engagement in health and sanitation. I now request you to take over the session, ma'am. Over to you.
First of all, very good evening to all of you. I thank MCC faculties and others for this opportunity. I represent World Vision India in presenting rural community engagement in health and sanitation. It's quite an interesting topic. As we social workers will be visiting communities, we'll be doing a lot of social service in the communities. We should be very much known to this topic, and I'm very happy to take you all through this topic. Next slide. When we say communities, community is a group of people with a similar problems and who belong to a same geographical location, belong to the same village, We have health workers in the communities, churches, hospitals. We have the media. Next slide. Why do we think community engagement is important in health and sanitation? Because community has to be involved in every other process when it comes for health and sanitation. They get involved in defining the health issues and also in the sanitation issues, and also they'll be involved in working towards in improving their health as well as in sanitation in their village. And also it will develop them when they come as a platform, when they come in a common platform. This will help them to design and for running any health or sanitation projects. And this community engagement in rural also will help them to share knowledge, whatever they learn, with the relevant leaders and appropriate members in the communities. And also it will help them to share community healthcare. In the sense, it will help them to prevent them from diseases. We know a lot of diseases caused due to poor sanitation and hygiene in the communities. When it comes for fecal contamination or a water issue or the sanitation issue, uh, it affects children, especially children under 5 years. And also it helps us to promote health and also stops us from the acute or chronic. It helps us to give acute and chronic health care. Next slide. What does the engagement mean? As previous speakers, they talked about the engagement. When it comes for the community engagement, it is a meaningful involvement of the every individual citizens in policy making as well as in the program development. When people are engaged, they play an active role in defining the issues because they are the best person to know what are the issues in the communities, what are the causes, what are the effects. Definitely, the community has to know about it. It will help them to identify the resources and also prioritize and make for action. It is a meaningful involvement of the community to take place at all stages of the project, whether it may be a research or a planning or an implementation. Next slide. This diagrammatic representation, which shows that from the if any community from the control or the power, it is all about the partnership with the community members. It will help them to share information when they come into a common platform. It will give them a perspective together and also to decide together whatever the issues it comes to the health or sanitation. It will help them to come and arrive for a particular decision, prioritize issues and make action for implementation. And also this common, whatever the discussion which happens as a community, it will support each other. It will give them the clear clarity, what is the role of a panchayat, what is the role of a community, and also what is the role of a youth, what is the role of a women, SG or whoever represents the community. It gives a kind of commitment when it comes for a when they are involved in a discussion. And it is also a sharing and learning process, and also it helps them to give a feedback and also decide and take action accurately. Next slide. It is an interactive, this community engagement is going to be an interactive and adaptive process. It is all about the listening, and it ensures that every individual who's involved in the decisions are understood. They are all in the same page. Repeated questions being asked whether they understand about the health issue or the sanitation issue, which is the burning issue in their community. It is understood. And when during the discussions, it is always seen that it's all open-ended questions. People who don't understand, they get clarity when they are in a common discussion. So everyone have a clear picture of what their role is to go about it. It is always an interactive discussion. Next slide. When we talk about the engagement, it is of sharing information and also encourage exploration of choices which they make, and also a lot of options are put in. It gives what are the problems, what are the, when they talk about the issues are prioritized, the options are there, what are the options involved in for each of the issue, and what are the benefits with each of the problems involved, and what are, they are able to map what are all the risk is also there, and also the decisions who all can be decided, whether it's a role of a government, it's role of a community, it's role of an individual, or it's a role of a health worker, or it's an Anganwadi worker, whoever is there as a representation of the community. There is a choices and options to make. What are the barriers for implementation? For example, if toilets are not there in the community, place is a constraint, but how an individual has an option to go about it. So the government gives a land, a common land, so that the community toilet, so that will give a solution to bring people to practice toilet usage, so they can use toilets. So this kind of a common solution they come through this point of discussions. This also it gives a clarity, as already mentioned, gives choice. They'll be able to explore a lot of choices, and also they'll be able to validate whatever the choices they make. They'll be able to validate their choices in the community. Next slide. These are some of the common principles when it has to be noted when we are doing when there is a community engagement. We should listen what the people are telling. We should attend whatever the people their concerns are. It may be a positive or maybe a negative. We should lend our ears to listen what the community has their concerns, and also we should make them understand, not just being listeners, but we should need to think more beyond the thinking of the community leaders. We should also help them in giving details of discussions, and also we have to give them right type of or amount of information. For example, if they know water is contaminated in the community, so we need to tell them where the water can be tested. We have the government PhD departments where the water can be tested. For every twice in a year they test the water, they give the contamination. So we need to guide them through resources. We need to guide them with the departments with available. Next slide. We should help them think beyond, no, we should out of box. We should also expect obstacles and resistance. Some of the things, it may not be possible, may not be feasible to implement, but we can give them the solutions. We can help them giving, recommend them, suggest them, tell them some best practices in which some of the villages where it is done, so that can be scaled, that can be replicated. And also we can give them multiple options available, whatever is feasible it can be guided. And we should always give them the assurance that it's not about the individual or it's about the capacity of an individual. It is all about the community. What are the issues involved in the community in respective of health or sanitation? Next slide. This is one of the exercise which we do when it comes for community participation. It's a ladder exercise which involves a collaboration of the community people. They come with whatever the decisions, it happens in a collective way. It is a learning exercise. They learn together. As I already said, when they come as a group in one platform, they discuss all their health issues, sanitation issues. We need to facilitate them and see how the health and sanitation issues can be addressed. So it's more to do with consultation with each other and come up with a solution. They come up with a collective action. Next slide. It's more about the knowledge translation. This helps them to reap major benefits. And we know, all of us, we know about, we have heard about CLTS. It's a common, it's an innovative methodology for mobilizing the communities to eliminate open defecation. So many of the communities, they go for open defecation. Normally, generally the people are always in a mentality that whatever the toilets offer to them, if it's given with free of cost, it's not in usage. So it's more to do with the behavioral practice. So to trigger their behavior, this community-led total sanitation is an innovative approach. It is facilitated to conduct their own appraisal and analyze their open defecation to take their own action. Next slide. This is a scenario of the communities. When it's given for free, people take it for granted. When they don't know, when they don't understand the importance of it, then this is how the facilities or the services which has been created for them, it looks like. Next slide. As I already said, it's an innovative innovative methodology which helps the communities to take, they apprise themselves to take own action. In this, everyone become a natural leaders to take a collective action. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. In this, the communities are engaged. This has the transact walk, mapping of a village, and the ladder exercise. This gives a clear picture of their community, how it looks like. Where are the people they go for open defecation? The defecated areas are marked, and the people are brought in there. They are made to understand. They are facilitated to understand where are the water sources, where are the important places. So they apprise themselves, their own village. They identify. It is triggered to make action to clean up their village. This is the best example in one of the communities which the village members are brought together and taken to an defecated areas where the people defecate, and they're marked, and they were able to, we give them the understanding how it affects the water sources, how, through the water sources, how people take those water sources and get contaminated, and through open defecation, how the flies carry carry them, and how in how indirectly we take in. Next slide. This is the demonstration of how they are doing the village mapping in their village, the more important places. This is one of the best community engagement exercise. Next slide. This is about, we talk about the food and shit demonstration, how people go for the defecation, how we carry them through flies, how it carried and taken through our food, and how it affects our health. It is practically demonstrated. This is part of the community exercise. This is also a mapping of the village, that they have drawn their whole village, and that is being told to the whole community. Next slide. Through these discussions, we facilitate the communities to own and take decisions. We tell them what are the resources available, what are the local materials available. Through that, they prioritize and say how important the toilet is for household toilet is very important. Next slide. This is how the community take, at the end of the session, end of the community exercise, they take a note saying how they will end open defecation and make their villages free from free. Next slide. These are the women in the communities. Through the in many of the places, the women are at the household. They don't walk. They don't come outside in some of the villages. But through this exercise, the women take important decisions. They are also involved in part of this exercise. They are also for ending open defecation. Next slide. These are some of the models with the available resources. They're able to construct defunct toilets and use. Next slide. This is the final thing, end of the community exercise. With the solution, with the collective action, they're able to implement. They themselves have a law for their village. They ensure that every person in a village uses toilets. So they are wholly responsible for their whatever the actions taken. Next slide. This is a signboard. These are some of the initiatives which the community has taken after that community exercise. This is how it looks after their initiatives, how the village looks clean, an open defecation free village. These are some of the learnings from CLTS. They are responsible for their own well-being, whether it is rich or poor. They unite together for collectively to achieve this open defecation free villages. Next slide. The community, the shame or fear it's created to them, and they are pushed towards achieving this open defecation free village. Every human being has a self-respect. We make them understand to this community exercise. They have the dignity. And even if it's a toilet, how we can develop, how we can build it using a low cost, using within the available materials to create hygiene behavior change in the community. Next slide. These are special learnings and how the strategies develop this access to sanitation, how the politicians and governments work together. When community is taking ownership, the sustainability is good, and it will enhance whatever the work they have been doing, and it will also involve the government also very actively. When the community is active, it will also automatically trigger the politicians or the government also to take equal responsibility in resolving the issues. Next. These are some of the lessons through our learnings from our field. From we were able to bring change in the communities through CLTS. It is a paradigm and the power change from the community. As it has been spoken for years together, open defecation was a major challenge in the communities, but this has resulted in a great change. Next slide. These are some of the things where globally the CLTS has been followed in all over the countries, and we were able to see good results in all the villages, and we could see a instant change from the government. These are next slide. These are some of the materials which are available in the websites for CLTS. So thank you. I thank this opportunity. I thank Jemmy Mole for frequently contacting and confirming. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The floor is open to questions. So the first question is to Basanti ma'am. Ma'am, how do we meet young women in the villages? As we all need young women representation with gender equity and in governance, how do we meet young women in the villages, ma'am?
How do we meet young women?
Yes, ma'am.
I think anytime you mean how do we approach the young women? I'm not understanding. How do we meet?
Meeting in the case like how we engage them in the community, ma'am.
How we engage them in the community. Yeah,
Yes,
it's
ma'am.
very important.
Especially with women.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult. Actually, it's one of the difficult aspects of engaging youth, young women in the communities. So it's generally recommended that the same gender create the first that what do you call rapport with the young women in the village, and ensure ensure in the process that they get some confidence in the person who is actually and trying to engage them in their in their community development. And slowly through this rapport and bringing out the issues, making them come out with all their issues, and getting the solutions from them, and then actually involving them in their own issues. This is the way actually you can approach young women and try to engage the young women. But I have seen some very interesting questions. Can I take those questions? Like, what are the most difficult challenge we have in rural communication? It's a very interesting question, because if we have rural communication is very, very essential. If we have to create awareness of development issues among the rural community. So there are several challenges that the government is facing, all the development workers are facing, and and one of the biggest, or as somebody was asking, I think it is some other. You want to know what is the most difficult challenge. There are several challenges, but if you say this is the most difficult, it is the literacy level in the villages, the low literacy level in the villages, where to reach them with the communication strategies is very difficult, because you have to depend on the non-verbal communication among them. So non-verbal communication is not easy when compared to verbal communication, or written communication. So non-verbal communication, to make them understand all the issues or to create awareness in them, it's very difficult if the literacy level is low. This is one big challenge. The other big challenge is, now of course it's being resolved to a certain extent, but it's the poor media reach in these remote villages. So even if the media reach, of course, now with the satellite communication and all, we are trying, and through the social media and the connectivity that is available, we are to some extent able to reach, but how much are we focusing on the development issues, the development of the community? It is more, if you see, the media reaches only on entertainment aspect, not on the development issues. So this is another challenge of rural communication. And the heterogeneity of our society, if you see, there's diverse, I think all of us understand the diversity in our country. So we cannot have one common, communication, and the communication is quite, communication strategy is quite, we have to spend on those communication strategies. So it's not possible to have one common communication for the entire country. Like in many countries, you have, which have, a single language, where we have so many languages. So how do we reach? If you see, when the government communication on development programs, creating awareness on the development programs among the, the villagers, it's not reaching to them, because it's mostly done in Hindi, not in local or regional languages. So the local regional languages, communicating in local regional languages is also an aspect or a challenge in rural communication. So if I see the next, I hope I've answered this question, the challenges in rural communication. The next question somebody has asked, Nagarajan, about village panchayats are not even in area, population, income. But the question he wants to he is posing is it possible to have a common method for all village planning? Yes, any village in India, have certain characteristics, and you can have a common structure of planning, but the aspects on which to be planned, the areas or the local issues will vary from village to village, and so one size will not fit for all villages. So we cannot have a common method in that sense, that we have to take into consideration the local issues to have village planning. So that I hope it answers Nagarajan's question. Nagarajan also is asking about suburban villages are well developed when compared to others. Why you give even distribution of fund? Okay. See, suburban villages are developing because of the proximity to the developed areas, the urban areas. That is the reason why they are developing, and not because they are given more funds. Funds are actually, as you know, given as per the criteria. So it's not, it's not because of the funds that there is a difference in development. Somebody's yeah. And the last question, if somebody can read out to me, because I think
yes, ma'am. Ma'am, we have a question over here from Karthik. So, how to bring together all the youth in the community to work for the community who are all divided in the name of caste, religion, etc., especially in rural communities, ma'am?
Yeah, it is a very difficult thing, I know, because we can easily say that, yes, youth have to be involved in the community process, but this caste and what do you call the other, differences actually play, can, be great hurdles in the active participation of the youth in, in the community development. But it has happened. And I have given you the example of Kutumbakam, where, actually it all depends on the, the panchayat leader there and the other members of the community, when they have realized that their village, when they realize that the village or the community development can happen only by active participation of every member of the community, whether he belongs to this caste or that caste, or whether he belongs to this class of, he's rich or whether he's poor. It all depends on, how the leader is able to overcome these differences, And that's how, in Kutambakam, if you see, Mr. Elango, first, there's this general animosity between the upper caste and the Dalits or the other, lower caste, youth in the village. So, how he approached that is he tried to bring, it's more important to bring the confidence in the upper caste groups that, the involvement of the lower caste groups is not going to affect their interests. It is only going to lead to the overall development of the community. And these are the plans, and this is how we are going to involve them, and this is what is going to what is going to be the impact. So convincing the upper caste, and also motivating the lower caste people, youth, actually, and bringing about a synergy among them. I think that there is a lot of role to be played by the leader of that community. By leader, I mean the panchayat members, the local government members, who actually have to ensure, the development cannot take place in a community without the participation of youth. That we are trying to prove in different ways. Rajiv Gandhi National Institute of Youth Development, we have a Department of Local Governance, and which is now trying to, bring about this change, and working, creating model villages where youth participation, by removing all these differences and by active participation of the panchayat members, the active participation of all the youth members across different castes, different economic groups, are actually leading to the development of the communities.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. So the next question is to Mrs. Regina, ma'am. Ma'am, how does social work students get social work internships in government of respective districts, especially focusing with water, sanitation, and hygiene?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
How does social work students get social work internships in government of respective districts, especially focusing with water, sanitation, and hygiene?
Normally the social work students, they go for their community development visits during their final years. So when they go and do some social work in the communities, like community cleaning, they do conduct campaigns in the communities, and during their visits they can have a meeting with the block level officers or the village develop officers during those meetings, and they also give you an idea where the scope is more on in terms of water or a sanitation or in the software or hardware, whatever it is. So they give an idea where the issues are more in those villages. So in that way, you can basically you need to have a good rapport with the community and also with the networking with the government officials.
Also, there's another question, ma'am. Since Vasanti ma'am was dealing with the engagement of youth, what do you think is the role of youth in promoting health in rural communities, ma'am? Ma'am, can you get my question? Okay. I think, ma'am, Miriam, ma'am, can you answer that question for the audience, ma'am? What is the role of youth in promoting health in rural communities, ma'am? Ma'am? Okay, I think there's a, okay. With this, we have come to the end of day one of the national webinar on importance of rural community engagement program. Before we close, I want to thank all the speakers who contributed today. I'm sure all the participants have learned something new. Tomorrow's session will begin at the same time as today, 3 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Hope to see you all tomorrow. Please fill the attendance link shared at the Zoom and YouTube chat box before you leave. Thank you all. Good evening.